They said I wasn't in the will. My sister told me, almost kindly, like she was handing me a blanket that wouldn't cover my feet. My name is Mara Ellison, and by then the lilies from my mother's funeral had started to brown around the edges. I had flown back to our coastal town 2 weeks earlier, trading my quiet marketing job in Denver for a spare bedroom that smelled like cough syrup and eucalyptus oil. I changed sheets, logged medications, and learned how to lower her gently to the bath. My brother Adam came some evenings and carried groceries. My sister Tessa arranged the flowers and posted a tasteful photo of the three of us with our mother on a church bench. Each of us grieved in our own way, but grief is corners, and I kept bumping into them. After the burial, the house was loud. Relatives arrived in waves, bringing pies and stories and opinions. When the casseroles cooled and the waves thinned, I found myself on the back porch with Tessa. The sky was the washed gray of an old sweater, and the sea beyond the dunes kept breathing in. Tessa looked at me without meeting my eyes. "We spoke to Mr. Whitcomb," she said, naming our family attorney. "There's a will. It's clear." "Clear how?" I asked, my mouth dry. "You're not in it," she said, and flinched, as if my expression were brighter than the dim porch light. I felt nothing at first, only the cold creep under my sleeves. The backyard was quiet, the hydrangeas clipped short, the garden stones still dusted with pollen from spring. I had thought there might be something small, a letter of thanks, a music box, even a single recipe card in her handwriting. Instead, there was a clean ledger line with my name missing. Inside, Adam poured himself another drink and avoided the conversation. Our aunt murmured platitudes that fell like feathers and floated away. I moved a chair back under the table, swept crumbs into my hand, and nodded at people I had hugged too often in recent days. That night, I slept on the sofa because the spare room smelled too much like loss. When I woke at 3, I heard the heater ticking and the tide dragging at the shore. I should have cried, but the truth felt like a sheet of glass. I could see everything through it, the small sacrifices, the messages sent at midnight asking if I could come sooner, the mornings I rubbed lotion into my mother's calves while she told me the names of birds. Tessa had said the will was clear. Clarity, I thought, is a kind of weather. You can stand in it and feel the wind, or you can go inside and shut the window. I stood in it. By morning, I told myself it was done. People do strange things when they know they are leaving. They choose a favorite, or punish a mirror, or try to rewrite a story. My coffee cooled. The house settled. From the hallway, a flash of something sharper came. Not anger, but a question that wouldn't sit still. It stayed with me as I stripped the beds and folded towels. It stayed with me when the doorbell rang, and a courier, apologizing for the delay after the holiday, handed me a heavy envelope with my name written in a careful legal script. I held it without opening it, and felt the first, unmistakable spark. I did not tear the envelope open like a drowning person seizing a rope. I set it on the kitchen table and washed the good mugs, the ones with a blue rim my mother used when guests came. The house carried her touch, the wiped counters, the vases lined up under the sink, the note on the refrigerator reminding Adam to put the trash out on Tuesdays. I dried the mugs slowly, one by one, letting my heartbeat return to something steady. The envelope was from Whitcomb and Pine, attorneys. The return address was printed in raised ink, the kind that catches a fingernail like a memory. I told myself it could be about medical paperwork or some policy no one had mentioned. Still, I waited. Sometimes waiting is a way to show respect. Sometimes it is a quiet rebellion against whatever others have decided for you. By noon, I had become a ghost inside my own house. Family dropped by to collect platters and return borrowed sweaters. An aunt asked if my flight back to Denver was booked. Adam texted from the hardware store because the garage keypad had finally died and they needed a code to reset it. I gave it to him, and he answered with a thumbs up, the digital version of a nod across a crowded room. Tessa came in the afternoon, carrying a folder and a practiced comm. "We're meeting Mr. Whitcomb tomorrow," she said. "It'll be quick. We just need your signature on some release forms. Mom's accounts will move to us, and the house will be listed in spring, when the market is better." I looked at the envelope on the table. He already sent something to me. She glanced down, then away. Probably a standard notice. They do that. I wanted to ask why she had not let Wickham send a standard notice before telling me I was excluded. I wanted to ask why grief looks so much like administration once the flowers wilt. I poured tea instead. Tessa talked about staging and paint colors, choosing neutral tones that suit all buyers. Her voice was careful, like someone guiding a stranger through a crowded street. When she left, I finally sat with the envelope. I ran my finger under the seal. The letter inside was short. It was dated 2 months ago, early spring, when my mother was still strong enough to sit by the window and count the freight trains at night. It stated that my mother had signed a transfer on death deed for the house, naming me, Mara Ellison, as the beneficiary. It referenced a letter of instruction, notarized and sealed, to be delivered upon her death. It mentioned a separate savings account, modest but real, designated to fund a small scholarship for girls in the district who wanted to study horticulture, because my mother never forgot how the garden saved her when the world felt uneven. I read the letter twice, then a third time, in case the ink rearranged itself. Beneath the formal text, there was a handwritten line from the firm's junior partner, a woman whose name I did not know. "Your mother asked that we send this directly to you," it said. She was clear and composed. "Please call if you have questions." I did not feel vindicated. Relief is not always loud. Instead, I felt the soft shift of weight in a boat that had been listing the correction of balance. My mother had never been theatrical. She taught us to finish what we started and to leave rooms better than we found them. She had not chosen drama in death either. She had simply moved a paper across a desk, and for that, the house itself had leaned toward me. That evening, I sat on the back steps and watched the sky fold into night. I made a vow I did not say out loud. I would not shout. I would not beg. I would bring the letter to the meeting in the morning, and I would let the truth stand in its own clothes, unadorned and unmistakable. Morning came with the slow confidence of a tide. I ironed a blouse I had nearly donated last year, smoothed its cuffs, and clipped my hair back. In the mirror, I looked like a woman I might admire in a quiet cafe, someone who reads court transcripts for work and plants bulbs in the fall. Calm, a little tired, not fragile. Before leaving, I called the number at the bottom of the letter. A receptionist put me on hold, then the junior partner came on, her voice brisk but kind. "This is Laura Pine," she said. "I knew your mother well enough to know she liked her coffee black and her geraniums red. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I said. "I received your letter." "Yes," Laura replied, and I heard papers shift. "Your mother asked that we prepare both the deed and a letter of instruction in case there was confusion." She used that word, confusion. "I've been told I'm not in the will," I said. "There is a will, and there was a codicil drafted last winter," she answered carefully. "But certain assets pass outside probate. The house is one. The deed is recorded. Your name is on it." I breathed in through my nose and pictured the deed like a slim bridge I could walk without looking down. "Will you be at the meeting?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Wickham is semi-retired now, and I handle the estate work. I thought it better to let your siblings meet first, to avoid a scene in the office. But I'll be there." I thanked her and hung up. Ally, I thought, was too strong a word for someone I had never met, yet the call steadied me. There is a particular loneliness in knowing something true that others deny. It can make you doubt your own footing. Laura had given me a floor to stand on. The law office smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and pages warmed by sunlight. Framed photographs lined the hall, black and white men shaking hands over desks. A pot of ivy trailed from a shelf, healthy and just a little unruly. Tessa and Adam were already in the conference room, talking in low voices. When they saw me, their conversation paused like a television on mute. Mr. Wickham, softer around the shoulders than I remembered, greeted us and gestured to sit. "We'll review your mother's will," he said, "and the small codicil executed in January. It's straightforward." Laura entered then, carrying a thin folder. She nodded to us, as if we were all equally reasonable. "Before we begin," she said, I'd like to acknowledge delivery of a document to Ms. Ellison. Her tone had the neutrality of fresh snow. She turned to me. Mara, did you receive our letter? Yes, I said, and placed it on the table, the raised ink catching the room's late morning light. I did not push it forward. I did not say anything else. Wickham cleared his throat. We will come to that, he said, but Laura shook her head gently, a teacher rescuing a schedule before it ran off the rails. We should come to it now, she replied. So there is no confusion. She explained the deed with the patience of a gardener instructing a newcomer to water at the roots. Transfer on death, recorded with the county, effective immediately upon death, not subject to the provisions of the will. The letter of instruction would be read after. I watched Adam's face harden in tiny increments, like mud baking in the sun. Tessa's expression emptied itself until I could not read it at all. The proof was not power in my hands, it was simply light. Light fell across the table, across Laura's notes, across my mother's careful planning. I held my breath so my relief would not sound like triumph. When Laura asked me to initial the copy acknowledging receipt, my fingers did not shake. On the drive back, I pulled into the overlook above the dunes. The ocean had lifted into a fuller blue, and wind pushed the seagrass into coordinated bows. I remembered my mother standing here the summer I was 10, saying the horizon helped her think in straight lines. The letter sat on the passenger seat like a small bird that had returned to its nest after flying through rain. I touched it once, not to claim it, but to thank the steady paper for carrying my mother's voice to me when I needed it most. Then I turned the car toward home, where the real confrontation waited. The living room felt different with the afternoon light slanting low and honest through the windows. Tessa and Adam arrived together, still in their meeting clothes, shoulders squared as if walking into weather. I had set out 3 glasses of water and a plate of shortbread I found in the pantry. Hospitality is not surrender. Sometimes it is an anchor. I don't understand, Tessa said first, not sitting. Why would she do that and not tell us? She did tell you, I said quietly. She told all of us, in her way, for years. She told us to keep the garden and to take care of the things that take care of us. She told us that houses are for people, not markets. Adam leaned against the mantel and looked at the family photographs, then at me. You were always with her these last months, he said. Maybe you had conversations we didn't. I had bath times and pill charts, I answered. I had long afternoons where she slept and the clock argued with itself. But this wasn't about whispers. It was about paperwork done cleanly, months before she needed a hand to sign her name. Tessa's mouth tightened. It feels like an accusation, she said. Like we weren't good enough. It isn't, I said. You both were good to her in your ways. This is a decision, not a judgment painted in neon. I could have said more. I could have reminded Adam that I called him on storm nights to fix the window that wouldn't latch, and he said he was busy. I could have told Tessa that staging a life is not the same as living it. But quiet revenge is not a ledger of slights. It is a clean blade that cuts only where it must. I put the letter on the coffee table. This is the letter from the lawyer, I said. It explains the deed. The house passes to me. There's also a savings account set aside for a scholarship. Mom wanted girls who plant things to have better tools. Tessa picked up the letter and read quickly. Adam watched my face instead, as if the truth could be found there, in micro-expressions and breath pauses. When Tessa finished, she sat down hard, the print of the sofa cushion rising around her like a small wave. What about the accounts? Adam asked, practical through a clenched jaw. The will speak for those, I said. You and Tessa will manage them, like you intended. I'm not asking for your money. You're taking the house, he said. I'm accepting the house, I answered. And I will keep it as a home. That's my only promise. Silence shaped itself around us, not hostile, not kind, simply present. Outside, the wind moved the chimes with a single soft sound. Tessa looked at the photographs on the wall, our mother in a sundress holding a straw hat, the 3 of us in braces under a maple tree. Her eyes softened a fraction. She always loved this place, she said, and her voice had the same ache the house had at dawn. Yes, I said, and placed my palm on the table, steady. I do too. No one shouted. No one left in a storm of slammed doors. Adam stood, walked to the window, and nodded once to a thought I could not share. Tessa folded the letter along its crease and slid it back to me, an offering returned. We'll send the rest of the paperwork when it's ready, she said, and in that one sentence there was surrender and something like trust. When they left, the house grew very still, not empty, just calm. Justice is not noise. It is a room that finally stops humming, so you can hear your own breath again. I sat in that room until the light left, and then I turned on a single lamp and began to plan what renewal might look like in spring. Winter softened the edges of the town, fog rolling over the dunes in quiet sheets. I learned the sounds of the house again, the way the pipes sighed at 7, the way the stairs sang a low note at night. I fixed what needed fixing, and left what needed memory. I found my mother's gardening gloves in a drawer, clean and folded, the fingers touched with soil like a permanent blush. I put them in a shadow box in the hallway, not as a shrine, but as a promise made visible. I kept my work remote, adjusting campaigns between pruned roses and tax forms. On Saturdays, I raked leaves with Mrs. Greeley from next door, the woman who once brought us lemon bars when Dad lost his job, and who still knows everyone's dog by name. She looked at the beds we cleared and said, "Your mother would be pleased." I believed her, not because the beds were perfect, but because they were tended. There is a difference. The scholarship took shape with Laura's help. We named it for my mother's habit of planting bulbs a month late and still coaxing them into bloom. The Mary Ellison Late Bloomers Fund, small at first, then steadier, like a brook carving a patient curve into a field. In March, we received the first round of applications on recycled paper stationery that smelled faintly like books. Girls wrote about compost and community gardens and the way their hands felt right only when dirt lived under their nails. I read them at the kitchen table and felt my mother near enough to ask whether we should choose the girl who wanted a greenhouse kit or the one who planned to rewild a median strip near her school. We chose both. Tessa visited one Sunday with scones and, unexpectedly, a worn shoebox of photographs. She apologized for the way she had handled things after the funeral, then held my hand like a daughter holds a mother's hand in a busy hospital corridor, grateful for the warmth that keeps you moving. We talked about how grief can turn practical people into accountants and how love misfiles paperwork sometimes before it finds the right drawer. She promised to help with the scholarship social media, and within a week she had a simple site live, clean and bright. Adam came later, carrying a toolbox and an emotion he didn't bother to name. He replaced the faulty garage keypad and left a note that said, "Works," followed by an arrow drawn like a smile. He asked if he could bring his daughter to plant something in the spring. I said yes, and when he smiled, it made him look like the boy who once taught me to skip stones. The house repaid our gentleness. In April, the hydrangeas returned like gossip you are happy to hear twice. I painted the porch railing and set a second-hand bench near the front door so older neighbors could rest halfway to the mailbox. I began to host a small Saturday gathering, tea and shortbread, and a basket of herbs cut fresh. People came without fuss, brought jam, told stories, and lingered. Quiet may be chosen, but it can also be shared. One morning, I stood in the doorway with my coffee, the air smelling like salt and new grass. The light found the dust I had missed and made it look like a confession forgiven. For a long time, I believed revenge was a sharp weapon held behind your back or a speech crafted for a long-awaited stage. I know now that real revenge, the kind that does not rot, is living well with what was meant to unhouse you and making that life generous enough to shelter others. I think of the day Tessa said I was not in the will, and I think of the letter that arrived like a tide-smoothed stone, heavy and exact. My mother had given me a house only, so I would have a place to do the work she believed mattered. She had given me a way to refuse bitterness without refusing truth. The letter was proof, but it was also instruction. Keep the garden, care for the roots, pass on what is living. When the first scholarship recipients visited in May, they walked the garden barefoot, careful and thrilled. We took a picture by the lilac bush, our smiles quiet, our hands smudged with soil. Later, alone, I placed the lawyer's letter in a folder marked family, then slid the folder into the cabinet's top drawer. Justice did not need to be displayed to stay real. It only needed to keep producing its small, steady fruit. The morning light climbed the kitchen wall, and the house seemed to breathe again. I set my mug down and went outside to deadhead a rose, thinking how love and law had met and made something unexpectedly tender. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge.